There's something happening in your mind right now. It probably started before you got here. A loop, a question you've already answered 3 times but can't stop returning to. Maybe it's a conversation you replayed, a decision you've been orbiting for days, an outcome you've tried to calculate from every possible angle, and somewhere in the background there's a voice that calls it a problem. Why can't you just stop thinking? Why can't you let it go? But here's the thing nobody's told you yet. You're not thinking too much. You're trying to feel safe. And that is a very different thing. You know what the loop feels like. It starts with something small, a text that felt slightly off, a meeting tomorrow, a choice you haven't made yet. And then the mind goes to work. What did they mean by that? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I choose wrong? You go over it once, then twice, then a 5th time, and each time, you're not getting clearer. You're getting more tense. It bleeds into everything. You can't be fully present in a conversation because part of your mind is already elsewhere. You struggle to start things because you're still processing things that haven't happened yet. Decisions feel enormous. Silence feels threatening. Stillness feels wrong. And here's what makes it worse. You're aware of it. You watch yourself overthinking and then overthink about the fact that you're overthinking. The self-judgment piles on. I'm too anxious. I can't handle normal things. Something must be wrong with me. But here's the question that should be sitting with you right now. What if this loop isn't a malfunction? What if it's actually doing exactly what it was designed to do? You are not broken, you are not weak, and you are not fundamentally different from everyone else. What you are is someone whose nervous system learned, at some point, in some environment, that mental preparation was the only reliable form of protection. Think about it. In unpredictable situations, the mind that thinks ahead survives. In environments where things went wrong without warning, the mind that rehearsed every scenario was more ready. Overthinking is not a character flaw. It is a learned safety strategy. The problem isn't that your brain is doing something wrong. The problem is that it never learned to stop when the threat is gone. Because for a long time, the threat was never fully gone. So the loop continues. Not because you're dramatic, not because you're weak, but because your nervous system is doing exactly what it was trained to do, protect you. Here's what's actually happening inside your brain when you can't stop thinking. There's a structure deep in the brain called the amygdala. Think of it as your brain's threat detection system, always on, always scanning. When the amygdala perceives danger, real or imagined, it sends a signal. That signal activates the stress response: cortisol, adrenaline, hypervigilance. Your body prepares for threat. And your prefrontal cortex, the thinking, reasoning, planning part, kicks into high gear. Here's the problem. The amygdala cannot tell the difference between a physical threat and a social one. It cannot distinguish between a lion in the grass and an unanswered email, between danger and uncertainty. To the threatened brain, uncertainty is danger, and the antidote to uncertainty is information, prediction, control, knowing what comes next. So the mind loops, not because it's broken, but because it's attempting to convert an unknown into a known. It's trying to solve the unsolvable, how to predict other people, predict outcomes, guarantee safety, before it will agree to rest. The mental model, the smoke alarm. Imagine a smoke alarm. Its one job is to detect danger. It's calibrated to be sensitive. Better to go off for burnt toast than to miss a real fire. But some smoke alarms, after years of living in a smoky environment, become hypersensitive. They go off for nothing. Steam, a candle, the smell of someone else cooking 2 floors down. Your nervous system is a hypersensitive smoke alarm. It was calibrated in an environment where the alarm needed to be loud and fast. And now, even in relative safety, it still fires. And your mind, trying to help, chases every alarm with another round of thinking. Not because there's smoke, but because it hasn't learned how to trust the silence yet. So what do you actually do with this? Not in theory, in real life, in the middle of the loop. Here are 4 principles, each grounded in how your brain actually works. Principle 1. Name what you're actually afraid of. What to do? When the loop starts, stop asking, "What if?" and instead ask, "What am I afraid this means?" Why it works. Research in affective neuroscience shows that labeling an emotion, what psychologists call affect labeling, reduces amygdala activation. Simply naming the fear moves processing from the reactive brain to the rational brain. Real-life example. Instead of looping on, what if they didn't respond because they're angry? Ask yourself, I'm afraid this means I said something wrong. I'm afraid this means I'm losing them. Name the fear under the thought. That's what needs to be addressed, not the thought itself. Principle 2. Interrupt the loop with the body, not the mind. What to do? When you notice the loop, don't try to think your way out. Shift to physical sensation. Slow your exhale to twice the length of your inhale. Do this for 4 breaths. Why it works. Extended exhales activate the parasympathetic nervous system, your body's rest response. This directly signals the amygdala to downgrade the threat level. You cannot think your way calm, but you can breathe your way into a state where thinking becomes useful again. Real-life example. You're in bed, replaying a conversation. Instead of trying to figure out what you should have said, place one hand on your chest, breathe in for 4 counts, out for 8. The loop will slow, not because you solved anything, but because the alarm quieted. Principle 3. Replace prediction with presence. What to do? Ask yourself, is there a real decision or action I can take right now? If yes, take it. If no, the thinking is not solving anything. It's simulating. Why it works. The prefrontal cortex is most useful when it has something concrete to work on. When there's no real action available, mental simulation becomes recursive. It feeds itself. Recognizing this breaks the illusion that more thinking will produce safety. Real-life example. You're overthinking a conversation that hasn't happened yet. Ask, can I take any real action right now? If the answer is no, the mind is running a simulation for comfort, not for clarity. Let it rest. The simulation was never going to prepare you anyway. Principle 4. Build micro-evidence of safety. What to do? At the end of each day, note one moment where uncertainty resolved okay. Not perfectly, just okay. Why it works. Anxious nervous systems have a negativity bias. They record threats and dismiss neutral outcomes. Deliberately noting resolved uncertainty builds a counter-narrative in the brain's memory systems, slowly recalibrating the threat detection threshold over time. Real-life example. The meeting I dreaded went fine. I didn't know it would, but it did. That's it. That's the note. Small. Specific. True. Over time, these accumulate into a new kind of knowing, that not everything unknown is a threat. Here's the one thing to take from all of this. Your mind loops because somewhere along the way, certainty became a substitute for safety. And since certainty is impossible, the loop never ends. The goal isn't to stop thinking. The goal is to teach your nervous system, slowly, gently, with evidence, that you can survive not knowing. That uncertainty is not the same as danger. That the loop is not insight. It's anxiety wearing the costume of productivity. The smoke alarm doesn't need to be smashed. It needs to be recalibrated. And that happens not in one breakthrough moment, but in 1,000 small encounters with uncertainty that end in ordinary okayness. You've been carrying this for a long time. The mental weight of trying to stay ahead of everything. The exhaustion of a mind that never quite believes it's allowed to rest. That's not weakness. That's what survival looks like from the inside. But you're not in that environment anymore. Or if you are, you now understand what's happening, and understanding is the beginning of something changing. You don't have to solve the loop today. You don't have to think your way into feeling safe. You just have to begin to notice, one moment at a time, that not everything unknown is trying to hurt you. Some of it is just life. Unresolved, uncertain, and still somehow okay.